Praise the Lord. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack an absolutely intense, deeply personal story found in Genesis 22. So let's just dive right into this, okay? What we're looking at here isn't just some dry historical account. It's a compelling narrative of a father facing literally an unimaginable trial. I mean, we're talking about a man who has waited his entire life for a promised son, right? Only to be asked to do the unthinkable. We're going to break down the mechanics of this supreme test of faith, feel the dramatic tension of the journey, and really look at the profound outcome that actually changed history.
God calls Abraham, and notice his incredibly simple, instantaneous three-word response, "Here I am." Now, to really wrap our heads around what's happening here, think about it like this. Imagine a master teacher and their absolute star pupil. You know, sometimes a teacher will give their best student an impossibly hard exam. And they don't do it to break them or because they want them to fail. No way! They do it to prove the student's mastery, to refine them, and to show that student what they are truly capable of. That's exactly what a divine test is. God is stepping in here as the master teacher. And Abraham, well, he's about to get handed the hardest exam of his entire life.
And wow, does this command brilliantly illustrate the sudden, just devastating emotional weight of this exam. Notice the specific wording used here. Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac. The text doesn't just say, hey, take Isaac. No, it deliberately piles on the emotional stakes, reminding Abraham of exactly what he's being asked to give up. He is told to go to the region of Moriah and sacrifice his beloved child as a burnt offering. The high-stakes conflict of our story is fully locked in now. There is zero ambiguity in this command. It's just an agonizingly heavy burden placed squarely on a father's shoulders.
So let's track how this builds chronologically. Early, the very next morning, Abraham gets up, loads his donkey, takes 2 servants and his son, cuts the wood, and sets out. He doesn't hesitate. But look at that middle point on the timeline. On the 3rd day, I want you to just pause for a second and imagine the slow, agonizing reality of a 3-day journey with your son, knowing full well what you've been asked to do at the end of it. 3 whole days of walking, thinking, and carrying this dark secret. When they finally see the place in the distance, Abraham turns to his servants and says something just incredible. Stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship and then we will come back to you. We will come back. Even staring down the barrel of this impossible test, Abraham speaks with this unshakable, profound confidence.
This right here is the turning point. Abraham and Isaac are leaving those servants behind. It is just the 2 of them now, starting that final, fateful climb up the mountain. And the isolation here is just palpable. The rising tension in the narrative zeroes in entirely on this father-son dynamic. Every single step up that mountain is a step closer to the altar and a step further away from the safety of the servants and normal everyday life.
Now, things are laid out in incredibly stark contrast. Abraham takes the wood for the burnt offering and places it directly on his son Isaac. Meanwhile, Abraham himself carries the fire and the knife. This just drastically heightens the dramatic suspense, doesn't it? We are looking at the cold, hard reality of the tools needed for a sacrifice. One holds the fuel, the other holds the means of destruction. And as the text tells us, the 2 of them went on together.
And as they walk, Isaac breaks the silence with a heartbreaking question. The fire and wood are here, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? It's an entirely innocent question from a son to his father, but man, given what we know, it is absolutely gut-wrenching. Isaac clearly understands the mechanics of the ritual, but he sees the glaring omission. He just doesn't know that he is the omission.
Abraham's response to that piercing question introduces the central theme of our entire story. He simply says, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. Now, this isn't just him dodging the question. It is a profound, steadfast declaration of ultimate trust. I mean, think about it. Abraham is literally staring at the knife in his hand, looking at his son carrying the wood, and actively choosing to believe that God's provision will somehow, some way, intervene before the absolute end.
Okay, now the pacing really accelerates. They reach the place. Abraham builds the altar. He arranges the wood. He binds his son. He lays him on the altar, and then he reaches out his hand and he takes the knife. The actions are rapid, terrifyingly deliberate. We are at the absolute peak of the climax here, staring at a raised blade.
And then an immense, sudden release of tension. The angel of the Lord calls out from heaven, Abraham, Abraham. And once again, Abraham replies, Here I am. The angel commands, Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. The master teacher steps in and stops the exam. The test is over. Abraham has definitively proven his faith and his ultimate obedience. Almost immediately, Abraham's faith in provision is completely realized. He looks up, and right there, caught in a thicket by its horns, he sees a ram. He takes that ram and sacrifices it as a burnt offering instead of his son. And because of this perfectly timed intervention, Abraham names that very place the Lord will provide, which, by the way, is a location many scholars believe later became the actual site of the temple in Jerusalem. As the text notes, it became a lasting saying, "On the mountain of the Lord it will be provided." This unimaginable crisis ends in divine rescue.
But the story doesn't just end with survival, it ends with ultimate reward. The angel of the Lord calls from heaven a second time. And because Abraham didn't withhold his son, God swears by himself to deliver massive generational blessings. Listen to this. His descendants will be as numerous as the stars in the sky and the sand on the seashore. They will take possession of their enemies' cities. And crucially, through Abraham's offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed. This is the ultimate hero's reward. It's a cosmic promise tied directly to his obedience on that mountain.
Bringing this massive emotional climax to a close, we get a quiet de-escalation. Abraham returns to his servants exactly as he confidently promised he would. Together, they set off for Beersheba, and Abraham settles there. The dramatic, world-altering event up on the mountain transitions right back into the grounding reality of everyday life and travel. But obviously, they are forever changed by what they just experienced.
To round out the historical account of this chapter, the narrative actually concludes with a sudden shift to some family updates back home. Abraham receives news about his brother Nahor. Through his wife Milcah, Nahor has 8 sons, including Bethuel, who importantly becomes the father of Rebekah. Nahor's concubine, Reumah, also bears 4 sons, making 12 in total. It's a straightforward genealogical record, but it quietly tracks the growth of the wider family tree and sets the stage for future generational connections.
So what does this all mean for us? Well, think of faith kind of like a high-stakes trust fall. You only fall if you truly believe someone is right there to catch you, right? Drawing directly from Abraham's actions, here are 3 actionable steps for daily application. Number 1, be ready to answer. When a sudden crisis hits, maybe it's a tough medical diagnosis or an unexpected career change, adopt that "here I am" mindset. Number 2, act early and deliberately. Don't procrastinate the hard things, get to work immediately. And number 3, trust the provision. Even when you're carrying the heavy burden of a severe financial setback or a personal trial, maintain the perspective that the provision you need will be waiting there when you reach the top. The story of Abraham and Isaac really is the ultimate masterclass in passing the hardest exam of your life. It challenges us to look at the impossible demands in front of us and hold fast to the belief that an answer is waiting in the thicket. So I'll leave you with this final thought. When facing your own impossible tests, will you trust the provision is waiting on the mountain? Like, share, and subscribe.